Hi Tarot Tribe, it's Ethany and welcome to day 16 of the 31 days of tarot, and I'm so excited about this. This is a really juicy topic today, prompt today. So it's how much emphasis do you put in the textbook meanings for cards, and how much stress do you place on the feeling you get from cards through their artwork, symbolism, etc. aka reading intuitively. Do you do both or one or the other? So great, and I could probably talk about this for hours. I won't, but I could. Okay, so let's break this down. So juicy. So most decks come with oracle decks, tarot decks come with a little white book, and some of them come with really good guidebooks. And I've been talking to my friend Sharon from School of Gypsy Arts. She's creating her own oracle deck at the moment, and I'm doing my next one at the moment with Danielle. And we talked about guidebooks, and she says with her decks and her oracle deck, she never uses them. I do. I use them for a number of reasons. I use them because, especially when people create a deck, I want to know what they were thinking. This is probably the Gemini in me, right? I want to know what they were thinking when they created that. I want to know what energy they put into it, because the tarot is so deep and it has so many angles and facets and meanings and lenses in which we look through it, and experiences that we've experienced in our own life, and how we then view those archetypes and view those experiences. We come at it from a different angle. I want to know how that's touched the creator. So I guess with a lot of decks, like, so let's say there's the Lima Tarot from Llewellyn, and I feel differently between the majorly like mass-produced decks. Some of them have amazing guidebooks, not all of them, and privately produced decks. I actually will read the guidebook for both, but I find it's a bit hit and miss sometimes with the mass-produced ones. The little white books tend to be like, eh. So I just want to say, first and foremost, to kind of touch off on this prompt. No matter what the guidebook says, I always go by what my intuition is telling me. And I also make sure that I'm looking at the context, the position, the other cards, the question the person has asked, and all those things kind of come into play. And I've talked about this before, like how a tarot reading works and how I believe the tarot works and why all those different ingredients have to come together. So I don't think it's just sort of like one or the other, or it has to be just one way. Personally, I use the guidebook sometimes to inspire me and as a prompter. So it's not obviously in a client reading, because I don't whip out the book in client readings. But say, for example, I'm doing reading for myself, especially, and I kind of get a little, because I'm biased, right? I'm right in the situation, I get a little stuck. So I open the guidebook and I use it as a way to see where my intuition gets kind of, where the aha moment comes in, or I get a reaction to what's being said. So I'll read, and then the passage will be like, oh my God, that hits home. So for me, that's something I need to explore. So it's more of a prompter. I use my intuition and the guidebook, and I kind of use them both together, and it's this beautiful kind of marriage of my knowledge and my experience of tarot, my study over the years, and then what I'm feeling intuitively, and then what the other party is bringing to the table, and then the artwork as well. So I'm just going to have another sip of tea. And this is why, talk about it in Tarot Essentials, this is why I really suggest that people don't start with pip decks if they want to be a reader, because if you want to do a reading intuitively, if you want to use the artwork and the symbols, you are very limited. So this is a box set I found at, like, I found it at Chapters, but I also saw it in Walmart. No, it's a Canadian Superstore. Tarot Basics. It was really cheap, and they have really pretty major arcana cards. Like, it's a different art form, but it's a pip deck. Like, if I pull that intuitively, I wouldn't be able to give you nothing. I wouldn't be able to give you jack. So that's the reason why I suggest going for a fully illustrated deck when you start. And even if you just read intuitively all the time, oh, that's upside down. If you read intuitively all the time, because like that you'd have to go from rote learning, that you'd have to go from memory. So I still, I've kept this. The guidebook, however, for this is good. There's a lot of information in it. So again, but you'd have to learn it. You'd have to learn this before you go into using it. And I think I've kept this more for the guidebook than I have the actual tarot deck, because I don't love reading with like straight out pip decks that look like the Marseille or the Visconti Forza. I don't. So the Wild Unknown is very different. It's a pip-ish deck, and it is totally a pip-ish deck, but it has a lot more in it for me. And I've got the guidebook. I bought the guidebook for that one, and I use, I love reading what Kim has written in there, and I go on what I already know about the cards. So there is still that rote learning underneath it, and that experience that I've had over the many, many years I've read tarot. And then we'll have a look at the Thelema Tarot, because this has got imagery, but so that's a pretty, oh gosh, so glary, sorry folks. It's got imagery, so she's bowing down those 10 of swords, so you would be able to get, but I find like with the Thelema Tarot, and thank God the cardstock is quite nice. I'm just going to find one. So that's quite nice. There too. They're not as, I think because it's the people are front and center in this. So you can still get a lot of information on that. The guidebook, which is this little thing here, there's not a lot of information. It's still bigger than your average little white book. Bigger than your average little white book. I don't know where that came from, but I'm going for it. And I really like this deck. But, for example, so say we've got the 3 of Pentacles. So it doesn't, it's written very weirdly, I found. Does anyone else find this? Have you got this deck? 3 of Pentacles. It has a quote as if the 3 of Pentacles was talking to you, and then a little bit about the card, but then it has just keywords. So like that can also be very, very limiting if you're if you want to learn a bit more about the cards themselves, but at least it's got a bunch of information and keywords that you can kind of go on with and keep moving forward with. And because I'm a very visual person, and I think a lot of tarot boffins are, I love imagery. I love being able to see things in imagery, and I showed the 9 of Pentacles being my favourite card for the year, and I was like, the little snail down the bottom means something to me, the bird means something to me. Like, I look for symbols. I feel like it really enriches the experience, so I love going on that and what they mean for me too. So this is a really good guidebook. I've spoken highly and frequently about the Star Child Tarot, and I have both editions. So pretty. So the cards are gorgeous, but again, they are a little bit removed from, they're different, and that's awesome because you may not be able to get what that is right off the bat until you've learnt these cards yourself. Okay, so I think, so to kind of wrap up what I mean on this very big topic that I could talk about for a very long time, is I go intuitively over what is necessarily in the guidebook, but with context involved and taking the bigger picture involved and all those things that come together for me to make a reading. I use the guidebooks for myself. I'll always look at it, especially if I'm stuck for a reading for myself, as a jump-off point to tap into my intuition and have it go. I absolutely look at the artwork, the symbols and all that kind of juicy stuff, the colours, the placement of things. I look at all that because I think it's just, I think it adds to it. It can certainly add to your understanding of the deck. And I think there's no right way of doing it. So however it works for you, but I certainly take all of it into consideration. But I don't whip out books. I don't whip my hair back and forth. I don't whip out books at client readings. I've never done that. The second I went pro, the second I decided I was going to be a tarot professional, I never brought out the books in a reading because, you know, people were there to pay me for a service. But I do use them as like just to build my knowledge and for readings for myself when I get stuck. It was very probably long-winded, but that's today's prompt. And thank you so much for watching this. And if you enjoyed this and you like all things tarot, then please subscribe to my video and have a look my channel, and have a look at the other channels who are doing the challenge below, and the master list is also below. So thanks very much for watching.